The Bengals defense, in my opinion, is the single most interesting unit in the NFL. They've been a top 10 defense pretty consistently over the last few years, but with Joe Burrow's extension and the Jamar Chase contract on the horizon, there's been a bit of a talent drain on that side of the ball. They've lost players in free agency like Jesse Bates, DJ Reader, Chidobe Awuzie, and that combined with injuries led to some serious regression in 2023. Last year, Cincinnati allowed the most yards per play in the NFL. They had the highest explosive play rate, second highest success rate, and first down percentage. For the Bengals to be Super Bowl contenders, they've got to protect Joe Burrow, obviously, but they need to get back somewhere closer to a top 20 defense at least. But what makes the Bengals defense so interesting is that they've planned ahead for this moment. In the last 3 drafts, they've had 10 picks on day 1 or day 2. 8 of those have been defensive players. They took Dax Hill and Jordan Battle to be the long-term answers at safety, DJ Turner and Cam Taylor-Britt, along with some day 3 dart throws at corner. Their first round pick in 2023, Myles Murphy, they're hoping can be a good second edge rusher across from Trey Hendrickson. And then this year they addressed the defensive line with Chris Jenkins and McKinley Jackson in the 2nd and 3rd round. On paper, I like their team building strategy to plan for the future and have guys ready to step up as they transition to a new era. And I really liked a lot of these players coming out of the draft, but these new additions weren't all immediately successful last year as they were forced into the lineup, and getting second and third year jumps from these players is pivotal for the Bengals to reach their potential. So in this video, we're going to take an in-depth look at the biggest question marks on Cincinnati's defense, which I think are Myles Murphy, Dax Hill, and DJ Turner. We're going to go through what they do well at this point and the areas that they need to improve for this unit to have success. Now, since we're talking about a lot of young players that aren't really finished products, it's important to note that I do think this is a solid defense overall. As you can see here, I have them as the 14th ranked defense in the NFL. I'll also put the rating scale up on the screen to explain where I get these numbers. I think they have a lot of veterans and young players that are known quantities, whether it's star players or just quality starters. Trey Hendrickson has exceeded, I think, everyone's expectations as this team's #1 edge rusher. He had a monster season last year, 79 pressures, 20 sacks, 6th highest pass rush win rate in the NFL. He's so quick with his hands. He's a freak athlete, good power as a pass rusher. They've got to find some way to not ask him to carry the entire load, but you've got a star pass rusher off the edge, which is a great starting point. Cam Taylor-Britt, who they took in 2022, I think is one of the more underrated corners in the NFL. He missed some time over the middle of the season last year, and the Bengals passing defense really suffered when he wasn't on the field, but he's extremely athletic. He has good ball skills. He does a great job of anticipating route breaks. At this point, I view him as more of a high-end cornerback 2 that's being forced into a cornerback 1 role, but he's a young player still developing. I think could easily be a top 10 corner in the NFL. Mike Hilton's still one of the best slot corners in the NFL. He's on the last year of his deal, but he's shown no signs of slowing down. A few years ago, I was in school studying engineering, and I just wasn't excited about doing that every day for the rest of my life. And I decided to start this YouTube channel and make the jump to covering sports full time, and it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. And today's video is sponsored by Southern New Hampshire University's online sports management program, which lets you turn your passion for sports into a degree. Their programs are led by faculty with real-world experience, giving you the unique chance to learn from professionals and graduates, all while building connections in the industry. So if you're wanting to get your foot in the door in the sports world, go to snhu.edu/A to Z sports, also linked in the description, to see if you qualify for SNHU's sports management program. The safety room is really solid. They added Geno Stone as a free agent from Baltimore this offseason. They also brought back Von Bell after he spent a year in Carolina. And then Jordan Battle, their 3rd round pick from last year, I thought had an outstanding rookie season. Based on the Nick Scott experience from last year, I don't blame them for investing more heavily in the safety position and making sure they at least have a solid starter at safety 3. But based on his rookie year tape, I actually would have expected them to roll with Jordan Battle as the starter. This is a really nice interception from week 18. It's 3rd down. Bengals are in cover 1. Jordan Battle's the single high free safety. The receiver slows down a bit, which causes this to be overthrown, but you can see he has the sideline range to start at center field, make a really clean break, and put a roof over a hole shot. Good job here on this post corner to Calvin Ridley. Really clean hip turn as he's continuing to get depth down the field. He mirrors the route, stays over the top, and then high points the ball to force the incompletion. This play, it's 3rd and long. They're in an inverted coverage. Jordan Battle is robbing anything over the middle of the field close to the sticks. quick reaction time to drive on this sit route once he sees the quarterback get into his throwing motion, and then at the catch point, he does a great job playing the ball and forcing a punt. The Bengals are a very single high heavy defense. They ranked 9th in the NFL in cover 1 rate, 10th in cover 3 rate, and 6th in single high rate overall. So unlike a lot of teams, they actually have very defined free safety and strong safety positions. Jordan Battle spent a lot of time in the box, and he was an extremely productive run defender. He had the highest run stop rate out of the top 80 qualifying safeties at 6.94%. He has good size. He's a reliable tackler. The Bengals rushing defense obviously struggled as a whole, but Jordan Battle was a pretty good safety blanket on the back end. They've got a couple solid players on the defensive line. BJ Hill and Sheldon Rankins aren't game changers, but they're starting caliber 3 techniques. I still view the D-line as Cincinnati's biggest weakness. I have them as the 27th best defensive line in the NFL. One of Chris Jenkins or McKinley Jackson could surprise and be contributors as rookies, but I'm not expecting a whole lot in their first year. And then it's tied together by Lou Anarumo, who I still have as the 4th best defensive coordinator in the NFL. Obviously, the output wasn't great last year, but he has a proven track record, and when you get into the tape, a lot of the issues with the Bengals defense came down to execution. So getting into the biggest wild cards, the players that I think could swing this unit the furthest in either direction, we're going to start with Myles Murphy, who the Bengals took with the 29th pick in 2023, and I have a lot less to say about Myles Murphy compared to the other 2 players we're going to discuss because he played the fewest snaps, 304 snaps last year, only had 15 pressures and 3 sacks. He was a rotational player that definitely had some flashes, but at this point is still an unknown. I think he has a ton of potential and natural talent, but it's hard to be too confident until we see him play more. Probably his best play from his rookie year was this sack against Christian Darrisaw, one of the best tackles in the NFL. He's using his primary move, which is the stab chop, leads in with the inside hand, stabs the blocker's chest. That draws out a 2-hand punch. Once the blocker extends, he chops the outside arm, rips underneath the armpit, bends around to the quarterback. You also see him win with the same move here on Dan Moore, a slightly less impressive rep because he's a much worse player than Christian Darrisaw, but the strategy and the execution is exactly the same. He got a sack here on Ryan Tannehill, initially just kind of rushing down the middle. Once he's able to open up the right tackle's inside shoulder, he transitions into an arm over, gets into the pocket. Tannehill escapes and does what he calls scrambling, but it's no match for Myles Murphy's pursuit speed. And he had some other nice reps against both of the Steelers' tackles, gets a hit on Kenny Pickett here against Broderick Jones. He also had a few solid speed to power reps against Deion Dawkins, another really quality left tackle. But overall, obviously it's a really small sample size, but you just didn't see him get into his moves as frequently as you want. There was a lot of just rushing down the middle, not really seeming to have a plan as he gets into the rep. I think he showed enough flashes to where you can say, you know, we're working with something here, but needs to put it all together consistently. Hopefully he's able to transition into a full-time role across from Trey Hendrickson. I think Sam Hubbard is a pretty ineffective pass rusher, and if they can get reliable production from their second edge rusher, that will take a lot of the pressure off of Trey Hendrickson. The next player to discuss is cornerback DJ Turner, who is the Bengals' 2nd-round pick last year. He started 12 games last year, and I think it's definitely fair to say that he struggled as a rookie. He had the 5th highest yards per target in the NFL at 10.1. He did have 6 pass breakups, but we need to see a lot of improvement, and I think DJ Turner at cornerback 2 is my biggest concern when I look at individual spots on the Bengals defensive roster. He's one of the most athletic corners in the NFL, ran a 4.26 in the 40-yard dash. The Bengals clearly value speed when it comes to their defensive backs. They've drafted 4 DBs in the last 3 years that ran under a 4.4, and when you watch DJ Turner's tape, you definitely see the speed and the quickness and change of direction skills. He has the explosiveness and closing burst to drive on route breaks and undercut passing lanes. Really nice rep here against Deontay Johnson to power through the hand fighting, explode out of his transition, and break up the pass. This play, he gets stacked initially by Tank Dell, but he can access that second gear, recover down the field. Really good job getting his head turned around and locating the ball. And then this play against the Cardinals, he stays connected to the receiver for almost 10 seconds as Josh Dobbs breaks the pocket, but there's still a lot of things he needs to improve to be a reliable cornerback 2 next year. Despite having 4.26 speed, he actually got beat down the field pretty frequently. He doesn't do a great job in press coverage at this point of being disruptive at the line of scrimmage and rerouting the receiver's release. There's a lot of plays where he doesn't make contact at the line of scrimmage, gives the receiver a clean release, and that patient press coverage style can work, but if you're not doing a good job with your footwork of mirroring the release and staying on top of the receiver, you're kind of getting the worst of both worlds. You're in an aggressive, compromising position with a slim margin for error, but you aren't getting the benefits of being able to disrupt the release and inhibit the route timing. This play, Stefon Diggs gives some foot fire to start out the rep. He takes the outside release. DJ Turner isn't able to kick step and stay over the top, so he's immediately on the back of Stefon Diggs' inside hip. And then once Diggs wins the edge, he throttles down, basically runs a stop and go here. That causes DJ Turner to release contact. Diggs is able to create a couple yards of separation and get the touchdown. This play against Tank Dell, it's a completely uninhibited release off the line of scrimmage. As he's working downfield to recover, he never establishes a point of contact so that he can feel out the route and anticipate changes in direction. He's just in a full sprint behind Tank Dell. The pass is underthrown and he draws a DPI. Next play against the Chiefs, he's getting outrun by Justin Watson. This play is a perfect example of how 40-yard dash isn't everything with corners. It can be indicative of play speed, but it doesn't necessarily tell you a corner's ability to cover deep routes. The problem on this play is, again, he never establishes contact, so he has no way of anticipating the route break. He's trying to accelerate, change directions, read the route with just his eyes and his feet. That's so much more difficult if you aren't using your hands at all down the field. He also had some issues with ball tracking. This play against Odell, he's looking back for the football a little bit too early. He ends up decelerating, mistracking it. The ball goes over his head. This play, again, he misjudges the trajectory of the ball. The quarterback's able to outthrow his coverage for the touchdown. There were also a lot of zone coverage busts. Lou Anarumo's defense is one of the most complex in the NFL in terms of coverage rotations, and you could tell that DJ Turner and really the entire Bengals secondary was just not ready to execute that at a high level. This play, they're running an inverted cover 2 where DJ Turner's going to start out at outside corner but then zone off to the deep half. Turner doesn't identify Michael Pittman running a go route down the sideline, and it's completely uncovered. This play against the Jags, he doesn't carry the deep corner from the number 3, and it's an open catch. And then right here, dropping into the deep third from cover 3, he needs to be a lot quicker to identify this outbreaking route from Evan Ingram and drive on it. And then the final area that he really struggled was covering stop routes and comebacks. This goes back to his issue of not establishing a point of contact down the field. This rep against Michael Pittman, he gives up a completion on a deep stop, never really gets his hands on the receiver to feel out the route break, so he's just relying on pure anticipation. Same kind of thing here against the Jags, gets him fully accelerating downfield. He doesn't get his hand on the receiver's hip, so he has no way of feeling that deceleration before it happens. And then right here, George Pickens attacks his blind spot, gets behind his field of vision. Pickens cuts off his route, but Turner just continues to get depth, doesn't see the break until it's too late. So I think DJ Turner is probably the most important player on the Bengals defense. I really liked him as a prospect. I think he has rare movement skills, but you never saw that athleticism really play out on the field because he's just thinking too much, playing with inconsistent technique. We really need to see some technical development from DJ Turner so that his athletic traits can be put on full display. And then final player to discuss is Dax Hill, who the Bengals drafted as a safety, most likely to be the Jesse Bates replacement. And he started every game for them last year at safety, but he was very inconsistent, and it looks like they're going to move him to corner, either outside corner or nickel. Like DJ Turner, he also had some flashes, but overall struggled, and I think his level of play declined as the season went on. But I am a little bit more confident in Dax Hill. I think the flashes and the highlight plays were just more spectacular last year. He's another freak athlete that ran a 4.38 in the 40-yard dash, and you see the recovery speed and closing burst pretty consistently. Right here, he's actually a step late to break on this deep over from Justin Jefferson, but even though he's out leveraged, he's able to make up that space, work back over the top, and get the pass break up. Right here, you get kind of a wheel seam from Dalton Schultz. routes. He creates some vertical separation, but Dax Hill recovers and breaks up the pass. And then this play from the Seahawks game, he gets a pass breakup on a scramble drill. You really see the closing burst here to go from point A to point B in the blink of an eye. So the highlights in coverage are very good with Dax Hill. He's also a high impact run defender. I don't think he'd have any issues transitioning from free safety to slot. There are some times he'll take bad downhill tackling angles from deep safety, but when he's fitting the run from the box, he was very consistent. But there's still just a lot of stuff that he needs to clean up. I don't think he reads the game very quickly when he's playing safety, at least. There were a lot of inefficient steps and late reactions in deep zone coverage that resulted in big plays. If he is moving to corner full time, this is probably something that isn't as important. But at this point, I don't trust Dax Hill at safety to prevent big plays on the back end. He also had some coverage busts where he would lose track of his assignment. Right here, the Bengals are running a bootleg to the right. The running back leaks out to the flat, but Dax Hill doesn't cover him, and the Vikings almost get a touchdown. You compare this to Jordan Battle, who I thought was extremely assignment secure. Right here, he doesn't fall for the fake toss, stays home, identifies the slide route, and makes a tackle for no gain. But similar kind of play here from the first Steelers matchup. It's a bootleg to the left. They've got a slide route from across the formation into the flat. Dax Hill is just late to identify it, so he gets out leveraged, and the Steelers get a first down on first down. He had consistent difficulties maneuvering through traffic on picks and rub routes. The Bengals seem to just lock everything, meaning when you get a switch release or a rub route type of concept, you're just locking on to your original assignment. You're not passing it off or anything. And to have success with that strategy, you've got to be really quick to identify the routes of the receiver you're covering, but you've also got to have the peripheral vision to identify traffic before it can get in your way. These kinds of issues showed up when he was playing in the slot, so it's going to be something he has to cover this year. And when you project his move to corner, I think it will help in the sense that he can just play fast and cover people without having to think so much, but it's not like he was necessarily locked down in man coverage either. Even against tight ends, he was letting them separate out of breaks. I thought he had kind of a similar issue to DJ Turner where he doesn't establish contact at any point in the stem. Against better route running slot receivers, I don't feel entirely confident that you can trust Dax Hill in man coverage. But as with all the players we've discussed, he has a ton of natural talent, and we see all the time, year 1 to year 2, year 2 to year 3, you see a significant jump in a player's development. I don't think it's fair to call Dax Hill a bust. He just has to get way more consistent. So to wrap everything up, we'll go back to the defensive roster. If Myles Murphy can win a full-time role and be productive in year 2, I think this could be a really good pass rush. But if not, it's probably just going to be a one-man army again where you're completely relying on Trey Hendrickson to pressure the quarterback. If DJ Turner takes a step forward, you've got a really good cornerback trio and pretty much a complete secondary with no true weaknesses. But if he's kind of what he was last year, opposing offenses are going to have a consistent place they can go to for explosive plays. And then whatever you can get from Dax Hill, I think of as just a bonus. He isn't going to take Mike Hilton's spot, but as a playmaking fourth dime DB, I think he could add a lot of value. And if you've ever watched the NFL, you know that corners get injured pretty frequently, so he's going to see the field either way. The last thing I haven't really discussed, but I think is worth mentioning, is that both of Cincinnati's linebackers had down years last season. Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson had established themselves as one of the more underrated linebacker duos in the NFL over the last few years, but there were a lot of missed assignments, misfits in the run game. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that they can return to prior form, but that is something to monitor for sure.